Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for clicking on this and being a part of this conversation today. My name is Ross, and I have the privilege of sitting down with Matt and Sherilyn Hebel. Guys, thank you for doing this in the middle of what I'm sure is a busy day.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're happy to
Yeah.
be here.
So, I have the privilege of, knowing you guys a little bit, but just a tiny bit. So one of my favorite things about having these kind of conversations is everything that you're about to hear is almost all of it's actually new information for me. But we're having this conversation in real time a week before Feed the Need 2024. And we're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about why our church, Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Naperville, is such a champion of that mission. However, before we even get into that, I want to do something that you guys aren't going to be too big fans of, you, the Hebels, but everyone watching this is going to really enjoy. And that's what it is. I'm going to talk about the two of you. So what's been really clear in getting to know the two of you is you guys are just have servant hearts, serving in missions and being a part of bettering your community, bettering those around you is just kind of emulates out of your pores. And I'm going to ask a very broad question, but what I'm curious about is when you look at something like Feed the Need or KidsMatter, which we'll talk about in a little bit, or some of the other missions work that you guys are involved in, I'm curious how conscious you are and like, oh yeah, this is us serving. We're gonna go do this thing, versus how much of this is just in the water of who you are as people.
You want to take that one or you want me to? I,
You started
okay.
that.
I would say, Ross, it's the latter.
Sure.
I think it's just kind of in the water. I think Sherilyn and I intentionally, early on since joining Good Shepherd and even before growing up, have participated in volunteer opportunities and finding ways where we can help others, whatever capacity that is. So it's just kind of an inherent thing that we just do. And, it also cascades to our kids, where participating in volunteer events, serving events, things like that, it's just something that we kind of do in addition to our regular day jobs and other activities and things that we participate in. So.
Yeah, and I would add, I think really when we joined Good Shepherd 26 years ago was where the opportunities kind of came to us. So they came as, do you want to serve communion? Do you want to be an usher? Do you want to money count? Do you want to
help with the communications team?
Yep, you did that early on. And
yeah.
Then it was, do you want to help with Hesed House?
Right.
And then it was, we're hosting Feed the Need at Good Shepherd. This was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Could you help there? And so a lot of our volunteer opportunities came from Good Shepherd. And then to Matt's point, having it innate, I think, in us, we kept saying yes. And quite selfishly, it makes us feel good to volunteer. So
sure,
there's credit for us too, for sure. Because when you volunteer, you've heard that saying, you get just as much as the people you're helping oftentimes. And we find that to be quite true.
Sure. But I don't want to undersell how natural this is for you guys, because I do think there's a level of intentionality in how I see you guys have these conversations that speaks to how God's uniquely gifted the two of you. Because I think what's so cool to me about you guys as a couple, Matt, you were touching on this, right? Like, you still have your day jobs, you still have your lives, right? But this is something, and you guys are both talking about this. This is something that's you're doing with your kids. And to lean into that for a second, what I'm curious about is, have you had moments? Remind me, how old are your kids?
They are 19 and 15, almost 16.
Okay, great. So do you remember moments in their lives where you had this like, oh, they get it, right? Or they like where they maybe were lit up about a passion project that maybe even was different than some of the stuff that you guys light up about?
You have any examples you want to share? You want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Well, a handful.
So far, you guys are very polite guests. I just want to say that someone who I do this a lot. Like, yeah,
I can tend to be a little bit, loquacious. So I want to make sure I'm not stealing the floor. But
Sure.
I would say just a handful of years ago, Emerson or Amelia actually was going to Covenant Harbor
Okay.
and serving or taking part in a youth group trip. And she was devastated because it was the same weekend as Feed the Need. So she was really, really struggling with which do I choose? Not I'm not going to do either, or I'm not going to do both. It was which one is more important because both were so extremely valuable to her. And that was it was great for us. Obviously, we couldn't coach her on what path to take. We wanted her to make that choice. But we could help answer questions and kind of be there to facilitate answering that. Similarly, with Feed the Need, Emerson had a ninja competition out of state, actually, that she was competing in. And it was,
Okay.
again, same weekend as Feed the Need. And she almost didn't compete, even though we encouraged her to go do it, because it was Feed the Need. And Feed the Need is such a, they're there all weekend as well. It's not like they're just doing one packing shift. They will do the
Mhm.
whole thing. And it's just a given. It's something that they want to do, not that we're forcing them to do it. There are opportunities where we may be volunteering at a KidsMatter event or somewhere else where timing wise or other activities that are going on in their lives or even our lives where it's not always the easiest thing to do, but I don't know. I think it's just primary for us.
Yeah. What I like about that, first of all, if you're watching this and you're brand new to this conversation, brand new to our church, or you have no idea who the three of us are, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the links wherever you're watching connect to some of these organizations that we're mentioning or some of these causes, or make sure that you can get connected. I don't want to push past some of this insider language. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and speaking of connections, we every Sunday at Good Shepherd we talk about the Connect cards, and 26 years ago we checked the boxes of in the new members classes and said these are things that we do. I'm a designer. I could help out with designy related things. Sherilyn was in hospitality, so that's how we got pulled in to start, and just never we've never been forced into anything, but when the ask is there, saying yes is really not that hard.
But also, I think part of why that's true for you guys is you have a clear sense of I'm gonna use the word lame. That's not quite the right word, but you have a clear sense of what God's asking you to do and maybe what things that are what he might be asking of other people to lean into, right? You guys were talking about you're a designer and you're in hospitality, right? So you're able to say that yes in that moment and you're able to trust him in that next step and in the next step and in the next step. Because I think the other side of this conversation is people who look at the world and see so much need and get overwhelmed by it. And what's so clear in talking to you guys is you are encountering and dealing with folks who have a tremendous sense of need, but you're not overwhelmed by it. You're motivated by it. Is that a fair summary?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah.
So speaking of need, I want to talk about your shirt, Matt, but more importantly, I want to talk about the event behind it. So nice.
Oh boy.
That's going to be the screen grab in case anyone's curious. That's going to be the for people. Yeah.
I wanted to show off the FMSC mobile pack logo too, not
Nice.
just the need, but sorry.
All right.
Go ahead.
So if let's say people are brand new to this conversation, whether they're connected to our church or not, can you help people just understand what Feed the Need is, particularly because they are likely more familiar with Feed My Starving Children than they are with this event?
Right. So in a nutshell, Feed My Starving Children has permanent sites in Illinois. It has 3 permanent sites in Illinois, I think 4 in Minnesota, 1 in Arizona, and 1 in Texas. And we've got one very close to home in Aurora where people can go and pack food, 2-hour shifts, pack Manapack meals that go out to 120 countries around the world to feed kids in need, starving and malnourished children and people. It's a scientific formula that is made specifically for malnourished kids and starving kids so that their bodies can accept the food. Because, you know, sometime early on when they started bringing food to kids, they couldn't handle the food that they were giving them. So this food is, it's made for kids that need the ability to process food and to grow and to thrive, really, because of the food. So that's the FMSC plug or story that I would share. Feed the Need is an FMSC mobile pack, and individuals around the country can actually host mobile packs. Working with FMSC, you commit to make a financial pledge and a people volunteer pledge to pack at least 100,000 meals, and they will help you mobilize, get on the calendar, and help you support you to make the event happen. And Feed the Need is now in its 12th year, I believe. Some will argue what was the original start date, 12th or 13th, maybe year.
Put it in the comment section, folks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get your real details. But Feed the Need originally started at St. Timothy's in Naperville. It was a 100,000 meal mobile pack, and then it moved to Good Shepherd because we needed a bigger space. So we went to the activity center downstairs at church, and which was new at the time, and it grew significantly. I think we did 250,000 meals the first year. Then the following year, it grew even more in as far as meal production. But it was a lot of packing shifts over several days to try and make those meal counts because of the size of the space. So then we moved to an external college, North Central College, which was huge space. And we were able to significantly increase the amount of volunteers that we had and the throughput of food that we were able to do. And we brought on and worked with and connected with way more faith partners, businesses in the area, sponsorships, civic organizations like the Scouts, and all manners of sporting clubs and things like that. And here we are today. This year, I got to throw in a plug. We're at Benedictine University. So we're at a new location for the one we've been at for the last several years. But we've got lots of faith partners involved. We've got lots of corporate sponsors and local businesses that are not only funding the pack, because we pay for 100% of the meals. So as Feed the Need, we purchase all of the food. And then FMSC brings the support staff needed to actually make the event happen. Okay. And then all of those meals are then shipped out globally to partners on the ground they pay for the shipping to get the food in country and then in the hands and mouths of kids that need them.
Yeah, there's a couple more things I want to dive into there, but just to pause for a second I'm glad we went there first, because I want people to know this has nothing to do with the history of our church. What I wanted people to hear there was the methodical growth and the idea that this is a organization, this is an event, this is a structure that has thought through the things you're thinking of, right? Like a lot of times in a situation when you're doing some sort of work like this, you're going to get people who are like, well, have you considered? The answer is yes, right? In this case, the answer is yes. Sure. This is not your guys' first rodeo. And that's something that I think is those kinds of opportunities are really helpful are that much more attractive for people to come alongside, because you've already gone through those growing pains or challenges, or pick your metaphor.
Yeah. Feed My Starving Children does 300 maybe mobile packs a year.
Over
that. Yeah, more than that. So bringing Feed My Starving Children out into community, because as Matt said, there's fewer than 6 permanent sites in the country. So to be able to bring it into community through mobile packs is a huge part of the success of Feed My Starving Children. So it's unique that we just happen to be so close to Aurora, but the fact that we can fill Benedictine, we can fill North Central College with 4,000 volunteers over 2 days of packing and pack 800,000 plus meals over a weekend is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So 800,000 meals is the 2024 goal. And I recognize that, we're having this conversation about a week before the event. You might be seeing this even after the event. And if that's you, if you're in the future right now, first of all, hope everything's going well. But second, these links in this conversation is still relevant. Check out what's going on in 2025. Check out what's going on in missions generally. This is the purpose of why we're having this conversation is about Feed the Need 24, but it's much broader than that. For Feed the Need 24 specifically, one of the things that stands out to me about this big goal of 800,000 is this opportunity, if I'm just hearing about this for the first time, to participate in something of that magnitude. So 800,000 meals are going to get packed over this weekend. What can you tell me about the impact of that amount of about where this food's going to go?
Well, generally speaking, the output beyond Feed the Need events, typically the food will go to at least 3 destinations in large supply, sometimes up to 10 different destinations in smaller supply, whether it's a pallet of food, a handful of boxes of food, or a shipping container. It'll be divvied up to lots of locations. So the impact globally is immense. This year, we're actually hoping to surpass the 10 million meal mark for Feed the Need as an event. Sorry, I spaced out on the original question because I veered off track.
Here's what I've always loved about Feed My Starving Children is, number one, kids as young as 5 years old can do it. So it can be a family event. And number two, you see the results. So you're physically putting vitamins and veggies and soy and rice into a bag, and you're sealing it and you're boxing it. Matt had an opportunity to go on a mission trip to see Feed My Starving Children food in the Dominican Republic getting received and getting to a village and getting prepared and getting, feeding kids. So it's tangible. You can see the results of your 2 hands that scooped that food and prepared that meal, sealed it, put it in a box, and know that it's on its way to a destination where it's needed to save lives.
And it takes a bit of that magnitude of eliminating hunger globally is hard. It's not something that's going to happen. Unfortunately, we're maybe in a better place now, but probably not in a better place than we were before Feed the Need started. But you can take the immense measure of fixing global hunger, whittle it down into a 2-hour packing session where you can actually have fun. You can be with friends, you can be with family, you can work together, and you have the literal ingredients that are needed to help save lives.
Yeah.
And specifically 800,000 meals. If you were to take those 800,000 meals and divide them by 365 meals a day, that's like 2,200 kids that will have their next birthday. 2,200 kids just from this weekend. And you can't do better than that with your time,
Exactly. Because that's my thing for people. It's like, don't you want to be part of that? Regardless of what your weekend plan is, like, it's not feeding 2,200 kids. It's just not. There's nobody watching this that's their plan unless they've already registered for Feed the Need 2024. Because when I think about those kinds of moments, right? And we can broaden it up to other missions work, right? But when you see when God's up to something, there's this moment where you can go, I can either participate in this thing that God's doing, or I can't, right? And in today's world, it's very easy. I heard a comedian once say, it's never been easier not to do a thing, right? It's very easy not to do a thing. However, I always frame this as like, when you think about the idea of 2,200 kids being able to see their next birthday, the next year, you want to be able to look back and know that you helped, rather than looking back and being like, yeah, I watched, some good Netflix that weekend, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not dogging Netflix. You can watch Netflix after your shift. So I
Yeah.
think it's just important to contextualize that for folks because it's such a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. And
So
it's a bite-sized opportunity. It's 2 hours. Like you
yes.
said, you could binge watch a couple shows on Netflix, or you could go and save lives and give hope to kids.
So there are links and more information about Feed the Need 24 wherever you are listening or watching. But I do want to wrap up with one more sort of opportunity for people. So this is really specifically, Sherilyn, you've actually, this fantastic organization already got mentioned, and that's KidsMatter. Now, if you're watching this and you haven't heard of KidsMatter, please check out that link that's below. But can you let people know about this class that's coming up in partnership with Good Shepherd Church and KidsMatter?
Absolutely, absolutely. So coming up on Saturday, March 9th, KidsMatter is bringing to Good Shepherd a youth mental health first aid training class. KidsMatter received a grant to bring this really important training all throughout the community to faith partners, to schools, to teachers, and it's a class. It's youth mental health first aid, so it's for adults to learn how to identify and see signs in your own kids, in your kids' friends, and how to identify when it's something that you as a parent can help with. And maybe when you as a parent need to ask questions, and when you need to get somebody else involved. So it's just really learning just to help our kids. KidsMatter's mission is to build resilient kids who say no to destructive choices and yes to their endless possibilities, and having adults in their life and in their world that understand mental health and what teens are feeling and going through today is just another tool in that toolbox for kids to build resiliency. So March 9th is the training. It's a 6-hour training on a Saturday. It sounds like a lot, but I promise you, you will not be disappointed. It's pretty great material, pretty great class.
Ooh, man. Okay. I'm very aware that we are about 20 minutes into this conversation, and we can spend the next 4 hours just talking about what Sherilyn just said. But here's what I want to say just for my own personal response to that in relation to March 9th. When you look at where your kids are at, whoever you are watching this, that time is well spent. The world that your kids are in, the world that our kids are in, the world that my kids, I have my oldest is just we're in second grade, right? That's the floor, the ceiling for us right now. However, even at that young age, that conversation really, really matters, because kids are in an entirely different world than they are when I grew up, or when y'all grew up, or certainly a generation older. And I think what I would hope people hear is, especially why you guys are such helpful people to have this conversation with, is you guys aren't burdened by that conversation either. This is not a overly heavy or overly serious conversation. It's just a really important one, and you can take part in it on March 9th. Again, links for that are in wherever you're watching below. Anything to add as far as that? I came from Naperville Operation Snowball through U360 Services, so that's a whole I feel that deep in my bones.
Yeah. No, any questions? If you have any questions about the class, you can reach out to me personally. You can reach out to Ross. Yeah, we'd love to have you there.
Great. Yeah, mental health matters. So, and I thankfully, I think, well, my generation, our older generations, it used to just kind of be ignored, but it's something we can't ignore. We need to lean into, and be